We're at SEMA 2021, finally, and we're here with the great Bob Larivee. You all know who Bob is. Great car promoter, businessman, car guy, phenomenon, and he was a great personal friend of Ed Roth, Big Daddy Roth, before he was even Big Daddy, before that all came about. And I don't think anybody knew him any better in the show car world than Bob. Bob, how did y'all, when's the first time you met Ed? When he
In the fall of 1960, he brought the Outlaw to our Pittsburgh show.
Okay.
And I was just starting in business, and I'd never seen anything like that. I'd never seen a person like Ed. I'd never seen artwork like he was putting on shirts and stuff. He was hand painting on shirts.
Kind of like a promoter's dream, I guess. Or nightmare, either way you look at it.
Yeah, and he had the Outlaw with him.
Right.
And I fell in love with the car, and we were just starting in business. We had started in '59, and we were expanding. And so I went to California the next year as we were getting ready to start putting together our souvenir program that we were going to sell in all of our shows. And one of our first stops in California was 4616 Slauson, which was Ed's shop in Maywood. And I went there, and the first thing Ed said, gee, welcome to California. I'd never been there before, and of course I always call it the Holy Land of the Hot Rodders.
Right, for sure. And I call it the Mecca of hot rodding. Yeah. You got to go there if you're a hot rodder once.
That's for sure.
Right.
And so he asked me what we had lined up, and I said, really, not much. I said, we're trying to sell ads. We're hoping to call on some of the manufacturers. And he said, well, would you like to go to Disneyland? I'd never even thought of that. But so we bundled off in a car and headed for Disneyland the next day with Ed and all of his boys, 4 of them, I think, at that time. Eventually he had 5.
Right.
And so there's pictures in my book of
That's
Ed.
Him and Sally and the boys.
Of Ed, and I took the pictures, so it was great. And we did end up buying the Outlaw and hauled it for a couple of years, and then we bought the Bandit and added that to our stable of cars, and then we traded him back about 1965, the Outlaw and the Bandit, for the Mysterian. And the Mysterian was a colossal pain, as most people know. The frame was never made strong enough to support the engines. Even the replica Mysterian, which is outside of Detroit in a museum, has had frame problems. But at any rate, Ed was not an engineer. He was a creative thinker and just a wonderful guy.
Well, the people sure liked his stuff, though.
Oh,
didn't
they?
They?
Yeah.
So is it true they line up for blocks around the halls to come see the great draw
and to get shirts painted and that kind of thing.
So the deal that you guys had, was he after y'all got going, was he a feature most of the time and not in the shows after that, or?
He was in the shows, but he always had most of the time he had a special car with him.
Right.
And in fact, surprising enough, there's probably 3 phases to my and Ed's careers coming together. The first one was the Outlaw Bandit Mysterian, which all happened right in a row in the early 60s. Then, years later, I wanted to do a piece of bronze with Ed, and so I brought in one of the Automotive Fine Arts Society artists, Larry Braun, and we created a bronze which was Ed with Rat Fink on his shoulder, and it's called Questionable Counsel. I don't know if it's still available. Larry made these out of bronze. They were somewhat expensive. And we also created a set of 100 prints of Rat Fink that were all signed by Roth. And so because of that, I made a deal with Ed, and he came to the SEMA show, and we were able to get permission for him to sell his shirts and so forth.
That's awesome.
So that, I can't tell you the years that all this happened, but that was sort of
long ago,
in the middle of our career.
Right.
And then the last thing that happened was Ed had built his last car that he finished in about 2000. And I went to Ed. He went to the show circuit because he always felt the car helped draw a crowd to his booth.
Sure.
And so I went to see him, and I thought about this for a long time. And so I said, Ed, I said, I'd like to get something from you that's more meaningful than just a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. I mean, I know those things are great. And he said, what do you want? He said, I can sell my socks. I can sell my underwear in Japan. And I said, well, I sure as heck don't want your underwear or your socks.
Well, no, I wouldn't want Ed. So.
and so we finally decided. I said, I want your top hat.
Oh, wow.
And he said, oh, I'd never sell my top hat.
That's his prized possession.
So this went on through the whole show season. Every show he'd show up, I'd go see him, say, good to see you. Did you decide to sell the hat? No. So finally we went to Milwaukee in 2001, spring of 2001. And I went over to see Ed when he came in, and most of the time Eileen was with him by that time.
And she says hi, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. And Ed said, you still want my hat? I said, yeah. And he said, okay, the end of the show, $1,000 it's yours. And so I bought his hat, which I still have and which my family says they will never sell. Ed passed away shortly after that, about 2 months later.
Right.
And I flew to Manti. Well, you don't fly to Manti. I flew to Salt Lake City, rented a car, and went to Ed's funeral. And surprising enough, when I come up with this idea to do the bronze of Ed, Larry Braun was very supportive, and I ended up, it got to be dark, and we had dinner there. Ed's wife at that time had cooked us dinner, and I ended up spending the night there because he didn't want to see me drive back through the mountains.
He's a very kind man, big old giant kind man, he really was.
And that's what I wrote in the book. I said, people thought of him as being a rough and tough motorcycle guy, but in reality, for me, he was sort of a gentle giant.
Me too. He was very personable.
And a man that I will always miss and love and respect.
Yes, sir.
So that's the image I got from Ed Roth.
Right. And Bob has all these great books that y'all can get. I mean, you come to any Detroit, you're usually always at Detroit.
Oh yeah, we'll have a big thing there with probably
He's
some books on it.
got wonderful books that you guys ought to pick them up and check them out. Bob, thank you so much for sharing these stories. It means the world to us.
Thank you.
That you're
My
here
pleasure.
to tell us, and we sure appreciate what you tell us.
Well, I'm glad I finally got some of Ed's story in this last book, which Larry Erickson did.
The story needs to be told, yours as well. So,
and that's why I do the books. I like to make a statement for posterity.
Yes, sir.
And I hope these kids come along and say, "What the heck is this hot rod thing?"
Right.
And buy our books or get their hands on our books and read them and learn about the history.
Well, thank you as a car builder and car show guy myself. Thank you for your pioneering spirit and bringing us where we can have stuff like this. Thank you very much. And guys,
It's my
Bob
pleasure.
and I signing out.
Thank you.